and welcome to From Harm to Home, the Westminster Violence Against Women and Girls Housing First podcast. My name is Louisa and I will be your host for this series, guiding you through the exciting and innovative world of the Westminster Violence Against Women and Girls Housing First project. The project provides housing and long-term wraparound support for women with experience of long-term homelessness, multiple disadvantage and any form of violence against women and girls in Westminster in London. We are making this podcast to showcase some of the amazing partners and people involved in this project, to create a platform for the women accessing the project to talk about their experiences and more generally to tell the world about how it works and what we have learnt along the way. In this episode, we're diving into the real stories behind the Westminster Violence Against Women and Girls Housing First project by speaking directly with the women currently engaged in the programme. We asked them a series of questions to understand their experiences firsthand, what led them here, the challenges they faced, and how having stable housing has impacted their lives. Their stories are raw, honest, and deeply personal, offering a powerful glimpse into the realities of homelessness, resilience, and hope. To protect their privacy, all names used in this episode are pseudonyms. Firstly, I asked the women in the project what life was like for them before receiving support from the Westminster Violence Against Women and Girls Housing First project. Here is what Leanne had to say.
Pretty hectic.
Hectic?
I was in a horrible hospital, yeah.
Okay. Where was the hospital? In Westminster?
It was Vauxhall Road.
Okay. What was hectic about it?
Just everybody in there was taking drugs. I used to take drugs, but I stopped like almost 6 years ago.
Okay.
And that's when I first started getting help from Solace.
Okay.
When I sort of moved into that hostel, because they thought that it wasn't really the right place for me to be in.
Okay. So, and you've been with the service 4.5?
Maybe coming on 5 now.
Coming on 5 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is what Zoe had to say.
Very tough.
Very tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very tough.
What was, I suppose, you don't have to go into whatever you don't want to go into, but what was tough about life?
Having no support. And then I was in a hostel, and then someone referred me to a Solace. And then I got Alison as my worker.
There you go.
That was the best thing.
That was the best thing.
Yeah.
And lastly, here is Anne's experience of what life was like for her before the Housing First project came along.
Miserable, a bit boring. Do you know what was happening next? You know whether I was coming or going, to be honest with you.
I think one important thing to draw out of this topic is, I think, how the women describe living in supported accommodation, what hostel life is like for them, particularly for them as women. And I think one thing that's coming through for me here is, I suppose, how unfavourably it is compared with Housing First, with having their own flat, with having the intensive support. Life in supported accommodation can be hectic. There are a lot of drugs around, and I suppose it's that lack of control over yourself, your life, your space, your body. So I think that's something that comes through as well. I think as well, another kind of theme was, I think they felt unsupported by services they had accessed previously. There was a lack of support for them. We know that there's definitely a lack of tailored support for women within homelessness provision. And that probably, I think, goes, when you're listening to what the women are saying, I think you could potentially hear that supported accommodation and outreach services, etc., and homelessness services in general do or are designed with the needs of the kind of homeless majority in mind, which are, of course, men, but obviously, if a service is designed around that, then it's not going to meet the needs of of women, and it's not going to as effectively address and end their homelessness. So I think that's a kind of really key. It was really interesting to hear the women kind of bring that out. This then naturally led on to ask the women to describe in a few words how they felt about being housed. Here is what Sophie had to say.
How does it feel at the moment being housed?
Amazing.
Yeah. What are some of the good things about it?
Food.
Food. Yeah, just being able to make your own food. Any other things that you enjoy about being housed?
It's nice having your own space, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So it's different from a normal hostel because it's not just a room, it's got her own kitchen and her own bathroom. Because you like to mind your own business, don't you?
And here is what Leanne had to share.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
That's two, but they're great words. Why, why? Tell me a bit more about that.
I made my flat absolutely beautiful. Alison can agree with that. I've made it really nice. And it's that stability. I know that I've got somewhere warm to be,
And somewhere that's, you've decorated it really nice. That's really good.
Lastly, here is what Anne had to say regarding how she felt about being housed.
How do you think that's going to change things for you, having your own place?
A lot, because once I got my own place, I'll be settled. I can have my family around. I can see my kids, see my grandchildren.
That's important.
So just in response to this, I mean, we can hear the words that the women are using here: brilliant, amazing. So that's quite emphatic, I suppose. It's after being in the system, after periods of rough sleeping and sofa surfing and being in supported accommodation, which, as we've already highlighted, isn't necessarily going to meet their needs. Having their own space is absolutely critical and so important for them, to enable them to start working on the other aspects of their lives and themselves and their health, etc., that they want to. It provides them a safe, stable space to do that. So yeah, really important and really, really great to hear. I then asked the women in a few words how they would describe the support they receive from their Housing First worker at Solace Women's Aid. Here is how Leanne felt about her Housing First worker.
Can you think of one word that best describes the support you receive from your Housing First worker?
Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant.
What's good about it?
Everything. If you need help with anything, they're there to help you with absolutely anything.
What do you think? What's the most important thing they've supported you around, do you think? Have they helped you the most?
Just if I need to do something that I'm not necessarily good at doing myself, like calling people up, helping me sort out my bills. Because I had a massive problem with my gas bill when I first moved in.
Yeah.
And they sent me a bill for £15,000 and I've only been there a few months. But thanks to Alison, it literally took almost a year to sort it out. And then I ended up getting the bill knocked down to £350.
Okay, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and that was after not having to be able to pay anything because I wasn't able to pay it because they wouldn't let me pay it because I wasn't paying a bill that wasn't mine. So they helped me sort that out.
Amazing.
And the carpets.
Yeah.
They helped me get the carpets, yeah.
Okay, getting the carpets in.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they actually paid for me to have the carpets.
Did they?
Yeah.
That's really good.
I know, yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Cozy.
Yeah.
And here is how Anne felt.
Can you think of one word that best describes the support you receive from the Housing First service?
Brilliant.
Brilliant. That's good.
Really good.
What's good about it?
I've got somebody to talk to every week when they come. Do you know what I mean? They always tell you, always tells me when she's coming or whatever. And there's somebody for me to talk to, and they're always at the end of the phone as well. Even if I don't see them, I can always phone up and whatever.
Okay.
I can feel I can talk to them all about anything.
That's really good.
Lastly, here is how Sophie felt about her worker.
Can you think of one word that describes the support you get from your Housing First worker.
From her, they're amazing.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
What's good about that support that Ella gives you, I suppose? What do you like about it? How does it help you?
She gets me.
Yeah?
So that helps.
She gets you?
Yeah. I don't know when to say the wrong stuff, but every time.
Nice. That's really good.
In my kind of commentary here about themes, I think one thing that comes through really, really clearly is how important the women feel the bond with their worker is. I think they feel understood, they feel listened to, they feel supported. I think for a lot of these women, they won't have accessed a service before that is like it in terms of the intensity of support, the flexibility of support, like what the workers can actually do. Yeah, and I think you can see a little bit of their amazement in there. I think it's really important to bear in mind how important that relationship between the Housing First worker and the woman is. It is absolutely critical in mitigating and managing risk, the risk that women face from perpetrators, from their physical health, from their mental health, from addiction, from all these kind of different areas. That relationship with the worker is everything. Feeling heard, feeling understood. It is critical. That trust is critical, and you can really see there that the Solace Housing First team are doing that. They are building that trust and holding, that space for the women, and that's really, really fantastic to see. The next question I asked the women was around what difference the project has made to their lives. Here is what Anne had to say.
What difference has working with the Housing First project made for you in the past year? So how have things changed for you?
More confidence.
Okay.
And give me something to look forward to, like my own place and all that.
You're looking forward to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here is what Leanne had to say.
So what's changed for you over the past year?
Everything's just got better. I need anything help with.
Mm.
Like to apply for things.
Mm.
Anything to do with my housing.
It's just got better and better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other aspect of your life that's kind of changed or improved over the past year, you think? And Solace have been helpful in that?
Yeah, because of support.
Mm.
But I mean, I've got better over the last 5 years, definitely. Because they helped me they helped me with my flat and also kept me on the straight and narrow. Because if I hadn't got my flat, who knows whether I would have gone back into addiction or what, I don't know.
Your flat's been quite a big part of you staying out of addiction.
Yeah.
Nice.
Zoe had this to share.
What difference has it made for you in the past year being with the project?
Like I said before, just they're always at the end of a phone call,
Mm.
and they've helped me very well with my housing.
So your housing, that's improved over the past year, you think, or has that situation changed?
But touch wood, I'm moving back into my flat where when Alison first started working with me, he got me the flat, but something happened last year.
Okay.
And I had to move out.
Okay.
But luckily, they're still paying for the rent.
Nice.
And I can go back.
That's amazing.
And it would be nice for me to go back. Alison got me the flat. Now, Alison's leaving in a week.
Yeah.
And I would like to end it at me back home where it all began.
Okay. Yeah. So get back home, get back in your own flat again.
But I need to make it as safe as possible for me to go home.
Yeah. Well, that's a big change. That's made a big difference, I suppose, having a home.
It was my best home I've ever had.
Is it? What's good about it?
I don't know. It's a street. It's the actual flat. It's just, I can't describe it. I've got 2 boys and I've had houses and flats, but this beats. I just love it. And it means a lot as well because Alison got it. And I just want to end it. I want to end it is me moving back in and being happy so Alice can go back and she knows I'm back where it all began and hopefully touch wood, which I know it will. That's it.
That's really good to know. And I think it's really great that, you know, you love your flat and that it means that to you.
Lastly, here is what Sophie had to say about the difference the project has made to her life.
What difference has working with the Housing First project made for you in the past year?
Life-changing.
It's been life-changing. What things about your life have changed? Can you tell me a bit? Yeah. How's that changed with your health?
Getting better now.
Yeah.
And mental health is alright.
Yeah, better than it was before.
Way better.
That's really good.
So I think thinking about themes here and just listening to kind of what the women had said about the difference the project has made, I think it's definitely helped the women to stay out of addiction. The women feel like there's been improvements in their mental and physical health. It sounds like their confidence has improved as well. I think, yeah, there's no one particular area. It seems like there's been, little gains made across the board, and it is those little gains, I think, that are so important. In Housing First, we're not expecting people to make huge leaps back into the workplace and society, quote unquote, but we are looking at those little wins, those little gains. Staying out of addiction is not a little win, that's an absolutely huge win. Yeah, even improving confidence overall after what these women have been through, that's so important as well. The final question I asked the women was, what did they feel was missing before they were referred to Housing First? I suppose I was asking them a little bit about their experiences with other services they've accessed in the past and what their message would be to service providers about improving support for women experiencing homelessness. Here is what Leanne wanted service providers to know.
If you could give a message to service providers about how they can improve services and support for women experiencing homelessness, what would it be?
Open and understanding of people. I mean, some people struggle more than others. So some people, it's not so easy for them to actually engage with certain services. So the service should widen their horizon out. So like maybe go and see people more than just expect them to come to them.
So have be a bit more flexible.
Yeah.
And here is what Zoe wanted service providers to know.
What was missing before? When you were in hostels or things like that? Like
somebody to listen to me, not judge on first appearance. You get to know that person, don't judge. And I know that it does scare a lot of people off who's homeless, with women, most stuff, because the people judge just by opening your mouth for 1 second. It's not right. But these listen to you, they help you.
Lastly, here is what Anne wanted service providers to know.
If you could give a message to service providers about how they can improve services and support for women experiencing homelessness, what would it be?
Be honest, reliable, and true.
Why are those three things so important?
Honestly, the first one is important because when you're honest with somebody, you can trust them. And once you start to trust, you can get a relationship going.
That makes a big difference for you in kind of
communicating all that.
So to finish up discussion around the themes, I think from these interviews, the women all highlighted the judgment and stigma that homeless women face and the need to be open and understanding. I cannot stress enough important this is. And also just thinking back to the previous year's evaluations from the previous years of this project, this is something that comes up every year. It's really common for the women to talk about how different they feel, how they are not, made to feel so other, so alien, not part of society, and how difficult that feels. And I think when you think about how women are isolated and othered and humiliated and degraded by perpetrators of abuse, by other men in their lives, and then you have kind of this general societal judgment and stigma around being homeless. And then when you think about how that's gendered for women who, you know, stereotypically meant to be homemakers, mothers, you know, holders of that domestic space, and how, you know, women might feel like they have failed to do that, how society judges them. Then when you think about all those things together, it's an absolutely huge barrier. If a woman has internalized this, it's a huge barrier, I suppose, for her well-being, for her to move forward in her life. And I think it's really important as service providers, we have to question the assumptions and the judgments that we make about this group of women. And we need to think about how those assumptions and judgments are kind of sometimes integrated into service design and policies, etc., that disadvantage this group. So I think that was really important. Even though we hear this every year, it's really important message to hear repeatedly. This judgment and this stigma that homeless women face. We need to try and do more to address this head on as service providers. So finally, I just wanted to say a big thank you to the women who contributed to this podcast, who agreed to be interviewed by me and came to Westminster City Hall to do that. I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and reflections and stories with us, as always. Thank you. In this next episode, which is the last episode of this series, I will be sharing some data from the Housing First Year 5 Impact Report, where we'll be looking at some of the successes and some of the challenges and some of the key outcomes from the service in its 5th year. If you would like to find out more about the Westminster Borg Housing First project, please visit our website at www.standingtogether.org.uk. This podcast is written by me, Louisa Steele, and produced and edited by the amazing Holly Ringrose. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a rating and review. To stay up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on the Multiple Disadvantage and Homelessness Team channel on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening.